Hi, my name is Gats, Order for Librarian, and welcome to a new video. Today I will be sharing my 26 books to read in 2026, my yearly TBR. Normally I would make a joke on how 26 books is a lot to make TBR, but actually, for the first time in years, I feel like a feeling that I'm gonna do better at this one than I have the previous years. I mean, for 2025, I made the list, but more because I enjoy making a list. Not with the idea that I would necessarily read them all, which I didn't. I think I read like 2 or 3. But I have a feeling about this one that is going to be good. So let's get into them. The way I picked these is in October. Leandra from the channel Leandra TBR0 hosted TBR Harvest, which is a readathon that has 3 different activity sheets. One of those is the graveyard scavenger hunt, where you had to find a book with certain items on the cover. There were 31 different prompts that you could find, and you could either read it or just find the book and consider it completed. So what I did was, for every day of October, I took the prompt that corresponds to that day, because there were 31 prompts, and picked a book off my TBR that has that item on the cover. And then at the end of the month, I eliminated 5 of those books, and I was like, I'm not sure if I want to read these, or if I want these to be on the TBR, or I just looked and make sure that I have a bit of variation in the types of books that are in here. And so I ended up with 26 books, and that is what this is. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the books, but not in too much detail, because there's 26 of them and I don't want to be here forever. So let's get started. So the first one that I have is Habitus by Adela Fabias. Adela Fabias is a poet from Curacao who has then later moved to the Netherlands. And Habitus is her, a poetry collection by her. It's divided into 3 parts. So we have View with Coconuts, Rib, and Demonstrable Effort Made. So the first part of View with Coconut is about Curacao and life in Curacao, and Rib is about womanhood, and then Demonstrable Effort Made is about being an immigrant in the Netherlands. I have read and listened to Fabias read one of the poems of the latest, the last section, the 3rd one, and it gave me goosebumps, especially her reading of it was amazing. It was a really great poem, so I want to read the whole collection. And I just want to read more poetry in general, so this works great. Then secondly, I have Het Hart van de Adelaar by Emily Adams, which is a Belgian young adult fantasy. If there is an English translation in existence, I couldn't find one, but this is a YA fantasy about a girl who has death magic, so she can essentially kill people with her magic. And so the king wants to use her for his own gain, and so she has to sort of navigate, to what point can I work with the king in order to not be in danger myself, while also not committing atrocities in the name of this king. So I think it's gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be fun. So yeah. Then I have A Room Made of Leaves by Kate Grenville. This is a historical fiction set in the 19th century. It has some like gothic vibes about a woman who marries a man who becomes sort of gets like a high position in Australia, which is like Filipino colony at that time. And yeah, we follow her as she goes there and life there and stuff. And it's based on a true person. So yeah, I'm intrigued. And then I have Honeybees by Jacques Van Alphen. This is a nonfiction about bees. And, you know, like, I don't know what else I can say about it. It sounds really fun. I like bees. I don't like wasps, but I do like bees. So yeah, I'm interested to learn a little bit more about them. Then number 5, I have Der Magische Pakt by Tanja Wolfson. This is the first book in a German middle grade series about this these kids that can make magical candy, and they try to break a curse with their magical candy, which sounds kind of cute. And I want to give it a try. I do like myself a good middle grade, especially middle grade fantasy. I don't read a ton of them, but whenever I do, I generally have a pretty good time. So it's nice to have one on here as well. Then number 6 is one I'm so excited for, and that is The Hymn to Dionysus by Natasha Pulley. This is a Greek myth retelling. It's about Dionysus, who I freaking love. He's so great. He's a really interesting god if you like really dig into him. Just nuances, and he's full of contradictions. Love him. Maybe my favorite Greek god. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but he might be. And I just hope that Natasha Pulley will do him justice. I'm a little nervous to see like how she portrays Dionysus. But I hope it's gonna be good. I'm gonna trust it's gonna be good. So yeah. We'll see. I've also been wanting to try Natasha Pulley for a pretty long time, so yeah. I'll start here. Then I have The Lotus Shoes by Jane Yang. This is also a historical fiction. We have quite a few of those. Set in 19th century China. So we follow these 2 women in sort of, one is sort of the handmaiden of the other, and we follow them as, sort of, like they throughout their lives, and the struggles that they go through as their lives are very intertwined. And yeah, it sounds interesting. So yeah, it's also not a time period in Chinese history that I know. Like, not that I am super familiar with Chinese history at all. But like the 20th century I can say a little bit more about. But like before that, I don't know much. So it'll be interesting to see. So yeah. Then I have The Honey Orchard Inn by Valerie Bowman. This is a very like autumnal little romance, cozy, cutesy. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but I think it's gonna be fun to like read summer and autumn. I actually wanted to read it this year, but my hold didn't come in time, and then like I wasn't in the mood for it anymore. So I ended up reading it this year, but I hope to be able to get to it next year. Then I have a nonfiction, which is A Most Dangerous Book by Christopher Krebs. This is about the reception history of Germania by Tacitus, which is a Roman book about the Germans. Tacitus, it's interesting. He, on one hand, really admires them, but on the other hand, also thinks them less than him. And those two elements are both very present in the book. And so by cherry picking different passages, you could really use this as propaganda both for and against Germans, which has been done throughout history, with its culmination point in the 40s with the Nazis, the 30s and 40s with the Nazis, using like the more positive passages as like a legitimization of some of their politics, which of course isn't great, but it like goes through just the whole history of this book being used for people's political agendas, essentially. So yeah, very interesting. I've been meaning to read this also for quite a while, but so yeah. Then I have The Overnight Guest by Heather Goodenkauf, which is a thriller. So basically it's a snowstorm, I believe, and suddenly there is this person that shows up at the main character's house and asks like, hey, can I come in please? Can I like spend the night because there's a snowstorm? And the main character like, yeah, sure. And it's a thriller. So thrillery things will ensue, I suppose. So yeah. Then I have Blood in the Mist by Hope Mirrlees. This is a fantasy book that was published in the 1920s. And so it is pre-Tolkien, which is interesting because like obviously Tolkien had a massive influence on fantasy to the point that like you can't really write a fantasy book that isn't on some level influenced by Tolkien, even if it's just like making a conscious effort to go against the influence that is also an influence. No. So like you can't really get around that. So I think it's very interesting to like read a fantasy book that isn't, because it couldn't be, because like, you know, The Lord of the Rings hadn't been written at the time. So yeah, I have actually started this one already. I am buddy reading this with Leandra, the TBR Zero. But I already made the list before we decided to buddy read it this December. So yeah, I'm having a bit of a head start, but I think it's fine. But yeah, I am not super far in, but so far I'm really liking it. So yeah. Then I have The Psychology of Time Travel by Kate Mascarenhas. This is a sci-fi mystery. So we have like time travel is quite like a normal established part of life at in this book. And one of like the pioneers in it was our main character's grandmother. Um, and now our main character is sort of getting a message from the future about a murder that is going to happen, and she has to try and solve it in order to prevent the murder from happening. And so we follow that, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I like a book with like some weird timey-wimey stuff, so it seems like something that I could enjoy. Then I have The Briar Book of the Dead by A.G. Slatter. This is a sort of gothic-y fantasy about our main character who is from a family of witches, but she doesn't have magical powers until one day her, I think it's her grandmother, some family member passes away and she sort of has to take her place. And then maybe she discovers that she might be able to communicate with the dead. And yeah, we follow that, and it sounds fun. Then I have La Demoiselle Sauvage by Olivier Legrand and Annabelle Blusseau. This is a comic about the daughter of King Arthur. And I know like some very basic stuff about Arthurian legend, but actually I'm not as well versed in it as I maybe want to be. Um, so I don't know a ton about her or her story, but I'm intrigued by this comic, so I would like to read it. And then I have The Girl by Mary Kubica, which is another thriller. Um, it's one of the synopses that like they don't like outright state what is going on, but they kind of imply it. And through that, I think that we have this woman who is kind of being stalked and kidnapped, and then maybe like some human trafficking going on potentially. So I think it's gonna be a pretty like dark read and a little bit heavy. Um, but I would like to give it a try and see if I like Mary Kubica's writing, because I heard like I've heard quite a few people talk about her books, and so I'm curious what I will think of them. Then I have Molly and the Cat Cafe by Melissa Dile. I should have looked up how to pronounce that. Sorry. This is about a cat who, you know, is orphaned. So like her owner passes away, and so she's all on her own, and she meets this cafe owner who takes her in, and yeah, we follow that as this person is trying to make the cafe into like a cat cafe, because the cafe is kind of failing and she's trying to save it. But yeah, there is some pushback from the town as well, and I think it's just gonna be very like cozy and cutesy, um, and just like a fun sit down with a blanket and a cup of tea and just read it all in one go type of thing. So I'm excited to have that. Then I have The Queen of Dreams by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. This is a book with one of those synopses that just does not stick in my brain. But it's like a magical realism book about motherhood and like either set in India or like people who are like of Indian descent. Um, but that is really all I can tell you. Because it just will not, like, I've read that synopsis so many times and it just will not process. So yeah, we'll discover it as I read it. Then I have Damsel by Evelyn Skye. This is a fantasy romance, one of the two. Um, so we have this ritual where a woman has to be sacrificed and our main character is selected. But she isn't just gonna let that happen. Because she is not some damsel in distress who needs to be saved. She can do that herself. Thank you very much. And yeah, you follow that, and there's like a big dragon on the cover. So like it could be one of those books that just puts dragon on the cover without actually having any dragons in them, because those exist. But I do think there might be, so yeah, we'll see. Then I have Love Heart Lane by Christy Barlow. This just looked like a fun little cutesy little romance. So set in this very cozy little town that is like on an island that is connected to the mainland with a bridge, but then there's a storm and the bridge collapses, and so the people are trapped until the bridge can be repaired. And among them is also our main character who is just visiting, but then because of this, her stay gets prolonged and maybe romance ensues while she's there. So yeah, it sounds fun and cute and easy, which we all sometimes need as well. Then I have The Aleph and Other Stories by Jorge Luis Borges. This is a short story collection. It's a Argentinian classic, magical realism. Yeah, just a collection of short stories from one of the great South American or Latin American magical realism writers. So I've been wanting to try something by him. So that's what I'm gonna do, hopefully. Then I have Waking the Moon by Elizabeth, and this is sort of like a dark academia-y book. It's at a university, and there might be some cult things going on, some goddess worship, and you know, it feels like pretty, you know, like some of the tropes that something like The Secret History also would follow, with like this college student trying to find her freedom and exploration, and that maybe potentially going wrong. So yeah, I am very curious about this one. We're almost there. We're almost there. We only have 5 books left. So number 22, The Night Ship by Jess Kidd. This is a historical fiction about, we have a girl who's on a ship in the 17th century, bound for like the Dutch colony in Indonesia. But she strands on an island near like Australia, And then we have a second timeline of another character who lives on that island in the 19th century. And somehow the two are going to intertwine. Probably it sounds fun. Also, look at the cover. It's really pretty. I really like it. So maybe yeah, the cover definitely did a lot here. But yeah, I'm very interested. Then I have When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This is a fantasy where at a certain point all the women in the society turned into dragons, which from what I've heard quite a few people talk about this, is sort of a very clear metaphor for like female rage. And we have our main character who is a woman, like a young woman in this society, who also sort of feels herself turning into a dragon, and how to deal with that. So I think that it's going to be really cool. Kelly Barnhill is another author that I've been wanting to try for a long time. So I hope that this is finally going to be the year that I actually do. Then number 24 is Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix. This is a horror book that is mostly known for its like interesting formatting because it's essentially formatted like an IKEA catalog. And I've learned over like the past year that I really like books that are like formatted or structured in a like non-traditional way, that aren't like as straightforward. Maybe like they're told non-linearly, or we have a story within a story, or like some mixed media or stuff like that. I find that I really enjoy that in books, so maybe this could be a fun one to try, as I'm kind of like dabbling in horror and seeing what I like, what I don't like in it. So I think this could be a good one to try. Then I have Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. And this is so we have these children that are kind of like isolated and lonely, and so they have the chance to go to this portal world, this like castle that is just great and wonderful and beautiful, and they can feel at home. And there's a thing that they can find there, and whoever finds it gets to stay in this place, or at least keep visiting it, one of the two, but the others lose access to it. And so we, yeah, follow that. And I've heard it's very beautiful. And so I really want to give it a try. And then the final book, number 26, is Darien by C.F. Eagleton. This is the first book in the Empire of Salt series by him. It's a fantasy. So we have this city with a king, and there is 12 families that sort of rule the city, like keep a sort of very fragile peace amongst them. But then there's a plot to kill the king, and chaos ensues, and epicness ensues. So yeah, I'm really interested. I have been sort of like lately moving away from more like fantasy, whatever. Like it's never that I was like only reading epic fantasy or anything like that. Like that has never been my reading, but I feel like even like the fantasy that I would read a ton of lately just hasn't been calling to me as much. So we'll see about this one, but I would like to, you know, like I'm still like in theory interested in them. Just like there was like, oh yeah, I want to read some point, just not right now type of deal. So I hope that I'll sort of find that interest back. Like the books I'm interested in sort of like ebbs and flows. Um, anyway. So it's not like I will never read this again. But as I said, something that I've been noticing, which is interesting, because like I've always been I've always read pretty widely, but sort of like I've always considered fantasy still like my primary genre, and it was always the genre that I read the most of. And I feel like that is sort of the genre that is lately just hasn't been appealing to me, or just hasn't been calling to me in the same way like most of the fantasy books that I've read lately were like for buddy reads and stuff. Because like on my own, I'm just not very inclined to pick them up as much. I mean, there's a couple of exceptions, but just generally, I feel myself more drawn to other things lately, which is fine. But yeah, so it's like, here's like, do I put it on here or do I not? But like a year is long, like a lot can change. So I didn't put it on here, and if I don't read it, then I don't read it. But so that is the list. If you've read any of these books, please let me know. I'll let you know what you thought of it. Are there any books that you're very excited to read in the next year? And I'll hope to see you again in 2026 for a new video. Bye.